And everybody, spoiler alert up front. Welcome to Fully Cinematic with Rand and John, talking about because it's October. Everybody knows what happens in October. It's Halloween. So we decided this time we were going to talk about our top five vampire movies, our favorite vampire movies. So with that being said, I'm going to start it off and start with my number five film, which is actually an American version of a film. The American version is called Let Me In, and it is great. It's a story about a little girl who's um, she's had to survive on blood. She's a vampire. She has to move from place to place, and she finally settles down in this area, meets this little kid who's getting teased and really tortured by these bigger group of guys, and she befriends him. And um, the thing about this movie is it's not a fast action-paced movie, but it is one that you sympathize with and I hate to say that, of course, with her because she had to have people killed for her to be able to survive. But you do sympathize with the characters in some way. And acting is great. It's creepy. I have not seen the original version, but I think Rand has, and I'll let him talk about that because he's got expertise on it. But definitely a great horror flick that I think you should watch for Halloween. Great, love it. So, what you think? Oh my God, okay. But it's in your list, right? Is that one of those in your list? Okay, then. So, all right. I think it's great. Well, I don't know if you agree or not. It is. There's some moments where it's slow. I mean, like because you're like I said, you're following the girl and how she's living. She doesn't have the best. Well, she doesn't have any parents. She's got a guy that's, um, as you and I talked about earlier, who's kind of her keeper to help get the blood that she needs. And then you got the life of the little boy. He doesn't have the best lifestyle as for our best home life. So it's kind of a development around that relationship. It's almost like her being a vampire is kind of in a way almost on a kind of a sidebar type thing in a way. So but it's a unique film. It's definitely original from the telling of a vampire story perspective. But I thought it was great. I really liked it. It was good, and I'm glad you at least got to see the original. I'm going to put that on my to watch list. So that's my number five. What you got? All right. So so let's see. What's my next one? My number four on the list. Mm, somebody might think light of it, but anyway, Lost Boys. Um, Back in the '80s. I think we talked about the fact it was the early '80s. I think when it came out, and just to me, it just changed the whole. I don't know. It was just the look about it. It just changed the genre. I mean, because you got to think back then too. I don't know that era was, or that time was when you had, and this is going off track as far as horror films, but you had like the Breakfast Club. You had St. Elmo's Fire. Then you had Lost Boys, and it's so funny because it's about all these, you know, um, had a big hair and metal music and all that stuff and hair music. And that was I don't know how they call it, but anyway. Um, but needless to say, I thought that it was a great spin on the whole vampire thing. Um, it was just the acting was good. It had some comedy in it, kind of mix it up a little bit. Made it a lot of fun. Um, I think Diane Weiss, who played the mom, I thought she was good. The main guy that was after her. And like I said, spoiler alert, everybody, spoiler alert. Kind of find out that he's the guy that she's dating and likes. He's the one who's like I guess the captain or the leader of the vampires. And that just totally threw me off guard, caught me, it was just crazy. But anyway, I thought it was great. I thought it was a good film. Corey Haim and what's the other kid's name? Corey Feldman, always, together, and we're good friends. And I mean, that to me came across in the film. I don't know if anybody remembers her from the TV show Square Pegs from the '80s, but man, I love Jamie Gertz. I just think she is just beautiful. I've always loved her as an actress. She played just as a little side note, if anybody wants to know who she is, she was the one who couldn't spare the square on the Seinfeld episode. Love her. But anyway, Great film. So I thought it was that's my number four. All right. So what you got for number four? Let me ask you. She's the central character. I've just never seen it. So all right. Well, I'm just got to tell you, going not to going off on a tangent, but talking about werewolves, and for all of the people out there, just so you know, Brandon and I've discussed this, and we're not really going to do a separate episode on werewolves. However, if you have not seen the 1981 version of The Howling, now I dare you to take that werewolf in that particular film and compare it to werewolf in your movie, because that is special effects in that 1981 film, The Howling, is just amazing for it to be made way back then. It's just crazy. So you got to definitely take a look at that. If that's a note. If anybody's never watched it, got to look at it. So, um, okay. All right. Well, you know what? That might be a challenge. We might have to address that sometime on the show. So, our on our channel. So, anyway, that's up. All right. Okay. So that was number four. We're gonna go into our number three. My number three is also a 1980 film. Um, and it's one that stuck with me and stayed in my mind for so long, is the movie Fright Night. And this is the original Fright Night. There was one made with Colin Farrell, and I love Colin Farrell. He's a great actor. I saw his version, which was, I don't know the exact date. It's in the maybe 2010, something like that. Might be off. Good in it, but he is nothing like the Chris Sarandon who played the main character in, or the main vampire, if you will, in the original Fright Night. And that one's based on a little boy who um, moves in with his family. They move in. I don't know if they're in the house already and somebody moves next door. I think it is. I think it's where Chris Sarandon, who plays the bad guy, the vampire, and all of a sudden he, just kind of paying attention to what his neighbor's doing, and he realizes something freaky's going on. At the same time, he's also a fan of a show that Roddy McDowall, who is a classic in Hollywood. I just love Roddy McDowall. He has his show basically, I don't know if it's called Vampire Hunter or Vampire Killer or something. It's something to do with, vampires. And this kid befriends him and convinces him that he has got a vampire living next door. So they work together, and it's just a great film. I mean, it's fun, it's adventurous, it's scary. It's just a good mix, and it's definitely one that I highly recommend for everybody to watch. And for it to be a 1985 film, I watched it a couple years ago. I do think it's still I think it holds up. There's a few things that are kind of, I guess you could tell, um, are somewhat aged, but overall, still a great film. So that's my number three. Ah, okay. So this is the original one. It has subtitles. Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to watch that Swedish version. So, all right. So let's see. So now we're up to our number two, and it's one we talked about earlier, but I have to touch on it again. Francis Ford Coppola, who is a acclaimed director, obviously for the Godfather. He's done some other films too that have he's famous for, but nothing like that. But I do think that that Bram Stoker's Dracula, his version of it, is definitely one of his better films. It's amazing. We talked about all the highlights of it earlier, but I'm just got to touch on that whole thing with Keanu Reeves. I'm sorry, but that thing, and you talked about his Bill and Ted film. That's all I kept thinking about when I saw this movie was, that's either Bill or Ted from the Bill and Ted's Adventures or something like that. I just, and his acting just, it just did not fit the role. And with the long hair, it just, I mean, it just was not the period. He just didn't fit the whole element or the feel of the movie. I feel like, and we talked about this earlier, is that in my opinion, the movie, I felt like, and the book were just like hand in hand. I mean, you could just, they were just like, whoever he really took that book and just made it into its own on film. And excellent. I mean, Winona Ryder does a great job. She's always, I mean, in my opinion, she's always been a great actress. She's had her issues and problems and everything, but aside from that, she's always done great in her movies. And I thought she was a good fit in this. Anthony Hopkins, how can you even say anything wrong about him? Although he has played in some bad films. Um, Another great actor. The whole thing was just great. So my number two film, and definitely one that. But let me just. I have to mention too Gary Oldman. I mean, just an amazing, amazing performance, and he really should have been nominated, if not won, for that film. Um, Great actor. He got his due later on with another film, Darkest Hours. Is that right? Um, a little side note: a film called Sid Nancy, based on the Sex Pistols, and he is just absolutely insanely crazy in that film. He just does a great job, but he's a great actor, and he did an excellent job in this film. So number two for me was Dracula, Francis Ford Coppola. Can't go wrong with that one. Oh, I think that okay. Oh, never mind. Okay, go ahead. I don't want people from becoming vampires. Oh, God. Gee. No, who I had no clue. What about do we want to go into the comparison? Black leather outfit, and he had the glasses, right? That long black jacket. Oh my gosh. Okay, all right. Now I've never. Okay, I'm one of these. I've never. I hate to say it. I've never seen The Matrix, only because sci-fi is not my big go-to genre. And I don't know, just something about it has just thrown me off. But that is really, really some big, heavy comparisons there. That just makes you wonder. I would be interested in knowing if they need the same staff, like producers, writers, directors, uh, anybody that works in the film industry that was working on Blade also ended up on working on the Matrix stuff, because that's just really kind of coincidental. I mean, that's just crazy. So that is very close, and too many similarities in between characters, storyline, all that. I mean, that's yeah. I think you got a point. So that's definitely a good. Lord, that's almost a separate discussion. So they figured that that color wasn't gonna cut it. So, God, well, it sound like okay. Calm down. You sound like you have irritation there about the fact that the other stuff is. But yes, it sounded like it was a definite trendsetter, nothing else. So, but because honestly, I honestly did not think about haven't thought about the I guess yeah about the influence on the movies, especially from not only from a comic book perspective, but from like we're talking about now, vampire perspective. I mean, just all that. That's good insight. So I had no idea. So absolutely. So, but I mean, you got some solid points. I mean, absolutely. So, and obviously, it's a movie that's near and dear to your heart. So, and I respect that, and think that's good. So, um, now my next movie, which is my number one, is totally totally different. This is more what people would probably call an art house film. It is also from I don't know what it is about the '80s. Man, everything I just picked it seems like came from the '80s. But this one is a movie directed by Tony Scott. Came out in 1983. I was a senior in high school, um, and it's called The Hunger, and it stars Catherine Deneuve, who's one of the great French actresses, and I hope I pronounced her name right. And David Bowie, who had already acted in a couple of films before, if I'm not mistaken, but this was probably the at that time the bigger or the biggest mainstream film, if you want to call it mainstream, even though it's really an art house film. Susan Sarandon was in it, and then also I just happened to watch some of the clips of it tonight, and Willem Dafoe actually was in it as well. I mean, so I don't think he was in it for very long, but anyway, so very, in my opinion, this is it's classy, but it's also creepy as I'll get out. It's the thing about it is it's slow. It's not a very fast paced film. There's a scene, spoiler alert, I'm telling you now, um, where David Bowie, if I'm remembering this correctly, is he's fighting for his life because all of a sudden he is starting to age, which of course for vampires, horrible. Um, and he's trying to figure out what to do. And he and Catherine Deneuve are trying to live amongst everybody as normal humans. And he has a student who he teaches violin, and that was one of the hardest scenes to watch. I'm not going to go into the whole detail about it, even though I said spoiler alert, but it's definitely rough. And but the connection between Catherine Deneuve and her character and David Bowie and Susan Sarandon is just crazy. And what they do is they both decide to kind of focus in on Susan Sarandon's character, and Catherine Deneuve especially becomes infatuated with her. So I think at the time, kind of a controversial film too, because a lot of the lesbian community, I think, really took to it. And in fact, I was reading a reviewer who talked about the fact that he, when he was used to going to the bars back then, he would see a bunch of people. They were in the lesbian bars. They were constantly playing "The Hunger" because it was just, because they just loved it. And but the movie itself is awesome. It's amazing. It's an amazing film. It's just the um, I don't know how to say it. Like I said, it's just creepy, and David Bowie's creepy, and it's just something different I have never seen, and I have to put that at my number one. Love it. Absolutely great film. So what's up for what's your numero uno? What is your number one? Days and Night. Okay. Yep. No. That what I will say. Now, I have seen that film as well, and it's absolutely it definitely some of the goriest scenes I've seen. And I mean, just the fact that you're going to be stuck in that town, for 30 days and nights, um, where it's dark all the time. It just that is such a perfect ideal setting for to have a vampire film. I mean, because it's the perfect feeding ground for them. Nesting ground.
Yep.
Good acting. It was crazy. So exactly. So when did that one come out? I can't remember. That was jeez. But vampire films, everybody, for the month of October, and Halloween's around the corner. So, Rand, I'm gonna turn it over to you and go ahead and tell us a little bit of news that you got, and then also tell us what you think we're going to talk about next time. Oh, God, that's a good. Well, I see it. Yeah, but now, what's the interesting fact about Near Dark? But it's funny you mentioned Near Dark. That's actually on my top 10. And I'm gonna go ahead, and I hadn't planned on doing this, but to wait and let you get started. But
Go
I'm
for
gonna throw
it.
in a bonus too, because you cannot mention anything scary. I'm sorry. Without Stephen King. I mean, the master of horror. And he did a vampire movie that is, and I don't know if it was released in theaters, if it's actually TV, but I remember watching it as a kid, and it really freaked me out. But Salem's Lot is, that's creepy. That's a scary. It might be, I don't know. It could be cheesy now with the effects and everything. I don't know, but anyway, so that's another one that I was going to throw in there as a bonus pick. Because Stephen King is just you can't have anything horror without having him included. So anyway, so that's my bonus. So what you got going on? What's news for us, and what are we going to talk about next time? I was gonna say I can't. Yeah, that's something. And I didn't realize he was an actor, voice, but I had no idea he was in any film. So uh, that is so formulaic, though. That whole okay, okay. So what we're gonna try to hit next time? Oh, don't tell me that because I haven't even watched the first one, and that's on my list to watch. So, and before we end up this show, let me just go and tell everybody, whatever you do, please go out. Even though I know it's a hard time to do this, to go to the theaters. Regal, unfortunately, is temporarily closed. AMC, I noticed, is now only open Monday through our Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. In most locations, Harveston's still open, which is in our local area. Um, in fact, I thought about going to see something tonight, but we've got to keep our theaters open because if you're a real big cinema lover, there's nothing like going to the theater and experiencing film on the big screen. So everybody get out. We appreciate it. Thank y'all for listening in, and we'll catch up with y'all next time.